September 18th, 1939, the cold logic of war had already been written across Poland. Columns of tanks, the steady rhythm of engines, towns emptied of hope. But in one quiet field, where the mapmakers had marked only dirt roads and hedgerows, a much smaller battle was about to begin. Lieutenant Edmund Orlik sat low inside a vehicle, no larger than a car. It was a Polish TKS Tankette, thin metal, cramped space, barely enough room for 2 men. Designed for scouting and skirmishes, never for head-to-head fights with armor. These little machines were the kind of machines you HD, not the kind you charged with. Yet, Orlik's TKS carried something different. A 20mm autocannon, a modification that turned a scouting craft into a tiny hunter. And Orlik had a reputation for doing the impossible. Along the road, German panzers rolled like dark promises, tracks chewing earth, radios clicking, crews sealed inside armored hulls. To them, the countryside looked empty and safe. They had no idea a hunter waited in the bushes. Orlik and his 2 companions slowed, every engine thinned to whispered breath. He listened, the distinct thump of track movement, the metallic cadence of gears. The enemy was close. Orlik signaled the other tankettes to fall back. Their machine guns would be useless against armor. The mission now belonged to the single, modified TKS. He tucked into a line of hedges overlooking a crossroads, careful to keep the little tank hidden under leaves and shadow. The German formation approached, their lead vehicle rolling into view, unsuspecting. In the German tank sat a commander, confident in his armor. His machine was a Panzer, big and strong, built for the kind of momentum that crushes opposition. The Polish tankette, by contrast, was a whisper, hard to see, harder still to kill. Orlik aimed through his small sights, heart steady, finger ready. He saw the white cross painted on the German turret, a bright, arrogant mark on steel. Then, he fired. The 20mm round leapt from the barrel with a metallic COY and found the turret side. It punched through, thin metal that did not expect to be pierced in that place. Inside the German tank, ammunition was stored close. A single, well-placed strike was all it took. Flames and smoke erupted. The lead tank came to a lurching stop. The ambush widened into chaos. The burning Panzer belched smoke while its crew scrambled and shouted. 2 more German tanks halted nearby and tried to pin the little machine with shellfire. Big guns fired, their rounds humming and slamming into earth and branches. For a time, Orlik's tank trembled under the shock of each near miss. But the little autocannon was quick to reload, and Orlik's hands were quicker. His shots found weak points as the German vehicles shifted their armor angles. One hit, then another, and a Panzer side ignited from within after a lucky, deadly strike on stored powder. Flames roared. Crews scrambled. Orlik pursued the stunned formation as they tried to withdraw. He focused on mobility, small profile, fast change of position, sudden bursts of fire, then vanish. When the dust settled, 2 of the 3 enemy vehicles lay ruined, burning hulks on a quiet road. From a distance, it must have looked like a miracle. Close up, it was the brutal arithmetic of advantage, speed, a well-aimed weapon, and a man who refused to accept the rules as written. Orlik climbed out, breathing smoke and dust, and saw the cost. Bodies, fires, silence, where engines once declared certainty. He did not celebrate. There was no swagger in his movement. War had its small, ugly privileges. You survived. For a moment longer. Orlik would continue to fight. In the days to come, he would be credited with more victories and honored for his skill. But that afternoon remained a single testament. In a war of metal and mass, a pocket of ingenuity could reorder fate. The tactical lesson was simple and timeless. Technology grants power, but it does not guarantee victory. Training, improvisation, and boldness can overturn expectation. A heavy tank that relies on frontal armor and raw mass can be outwitted in the shallow terrain against an opponent who exploits the terrain and moves like a shadow. For historians, Orlik's action remains a point of study. How smaller forces can delay, disrupt, and demoralize a larger, technically superior enemy. For one afternoon on a Polish road, an underdog chose to fight. He used the tools at hand, turned a weakness into a weapon, and in doing so, reminded the world that warfare is as much about decision as it is about machines. In the long aftermath, Orlik survived the war. He would go on to live in peace, build a life away from tanks and gunfire, but the memory of that day stayed with him, as it does with every soldier who has kept moving when everything was designed to stop them. He became a story passed from veteran to younger soldier, a reminder that initiative matters. When we study battles, we often fixate on the great sweeps of armies and campaigns. Yet, the texture of history is woven from small fights, a hedgerow ambush, a hurried reload, a single shell that strikes its mark. Those moments tilt larger forces, and sometimes, briefly, change the course of lives. So when you think of armored columns and thunderous triumphs, spare a thought for the tiny machines and the men who rode in them, for the TKS, for Orlik, and for the countless smaller acts that shape history in whispers. The road that day returned its trophies, burned steel, hastily tended wounded, and the quiet knowledge of survival. The war would continue, indifferent. But for one crossroads, one hedgerow, one sunlit stretch of road, an unlikely hunter had brought the mighty down. If you found this story interesting, subscribe, and we'll bring more untold slices of history told with care and detail. Thank you for listening.